Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to some more fun. And today I just want to rant for a little bit, right? I want to rant because I'm just like, I don't even know where to start with this. So, if you've been living under a rock, Joe Biden has put in place a couple different executive orders to help with gun control following a shooting. Couple different shootings, actually. And I'm just so irritated with this shit because in his speech, if you watch it, he'll bring up, I don't remember the exact percentage. I don't even think he gave a specific percentage. I think he just said over half of suicides in the United States use a firearm. And then when we which I know the executive order doesn't address red flag laws, but he does bring them up in his speech. In states that have red flag laws, they've seen a tremendous drop in the suicide rate. And I'm just and this isn't even just Biden's fault. This is the fucking media's fault, which it doesn't matter if you're looking at CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, aside from Tucker Carlson, who is just an op-ed. Like, he's not supposed to be considered credible news. It's supposed to be an entire op-ed show, but he's somehow the most credible journalist in mainstream media. But it doesn't matter which one of those news sources you go to, aside from, like I said, Tucker Carlson, they all just fucking get down on their knees and deep throat the establishment. Oh, sure, we'll tell them whatever you want us to say. The media is supposed to sit there and act as an additional check and balance that the initial founding fathers didn't foresee, because at that time newspapers were barely a thing, much less what we have today. But it's supposed to enact as a check and balance, an additional one to all three sections of the government, branches. And the only time they even come off like they want to is when somebody's in power that isn't like a career politician who's never done a damn thing in their life except sit on their fucking ass at the White House and spew bullshit. And you know what? You could be pro gun control. You can be anti-gun control. I don't. Like, it is what it is. You do you. But I'm not about to sit here and pretend like these career politicians have never once brought up mental health. And you know what? This doesn't just apply to guns. See? This doesn't apply to guns at all. Like, I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Because the 1994 crime bill, the war on drugs, mandatory minimum sentences, instead of offering treatment to these people that found themselves involved in drugs, and most of the time it's fucking weed, which I don't even understand why that's illegal. I'm never gonna go smoke a bowl myself, but goddamn, it like weed as far as lethalness goes, unless you're a dumb fuck getting behind the wheel and driving under the influence of pot, weed is less lethal than fucking alcohol. Literally, the only time you're gonna die from having weed in your system is like a car accident. You're pretty much never gonna overdose on it. The amount of weed you would have to do in order to OD on it in one sitting is asinine. But instead of like offering treatment options for these people that get heavy into drugs, minimum of 15 years in prison, and they wonder why they end up going back, why so many of these people end up going back for worse shit, because now you've put them in prison for 15 years for having pot, whether they were selling it or using it. Most of the time it's using it, but you've fucked them out of so many jobs by doing that. You've essentially, all because they wanted a little baggie of grass, and because they're going through shit, or maybe they had cancer. You don't know why they have it. You don't honestly know why they're even in possession of it to begin with. And you've fucked them now out of basically any job that pays more than $15 an hour. And back then it was even less. It was more like $12 an hour when that bill was first introduced. I don't even think the minimum wage was $7.50 at that point in time. You fucked them so hard. Like, their life is over. And on top of it, you've just taken 15 years off their life, because they gotta sit in prison because you got this stupid mandatory minimum sentence bullshit. And you want to talk about stuff that disproportionately affects minorities, whether they're black, Asian, whatever. Look at mandatory minimum sentences. And this was something that our current president was a huge supporter of. He loved mandatory minimum sentences. Like, he was one of the biggest peddlers for that. And in his whole entire career as a politician, if you really break it down, That's all he's done. That is all Joe Biden's done in his entire tenure as a politician. Is a couple of crime bills in the 90s. And that's it. And they've ironically affected minorities more than any other group. Well, the only other group, I guess, is white people, but you get the message. They've that bill specifically has really fucked over minority communities. But I get called racist because I don't support a group that hides behind a message that you'd have to be racist to disagree with, when in reality all they are is a bunch of anti-cop, socialist cunts. The people, I know they don't have an official leader, but the people that started that group, if you look at their little manifesto, it is all anti-cop, communist bullshit. There is actually very little in there about black people. Which brings me to another point here that really irks me. I get called racist for not supporting that group. Black Lives Matter. I'm just going to say it. Black Lives Matter. I get called racist for not supporting them. I get called racist for not thinking Derek Chauvin's a murderer. Which, by the way, I've never said Chauvin was a good person. For fuck's sakes, he's also got a lawsuit on his hands for tax fraud because he tried to claim he was a Florida resident. Like, I've never said Chauvin's a good man. But there's good men out there who have committed murder. Whether it was manslaughter or secondary or maybe first degree. There is this thing out there called vigilante justice. There are some really good men and women. Good men and women that somebody they knew was a piece of shit got off scot-free. They'll go and take matters into their own hands and commit first-degree murder. They broke the law. I'd argue that they're better people than Derek Chauvin, but Derek Chauvin did not commit murder on George Floyd. But I will get called racist for saying that. You know what the media's done with what happened in D.C.? For those who don't know what happened in D.C., there was a Indian Uber Eats driver who had come over from India legally, mind you. To try and get a better life for his family. And these 15 and 13-year-old black teenage girls hijacked his car. And when he tried to get them out of his car, they proceeded to drive off, slam him into two barricades, and roll the vehicle. He's dead. The media wants to call that an accident. Oh, it was an accident. No murder. He was killed in an accident. And these deluded bimbos when they get helped out by the National Guard, which fuck the National Guard for not even trying to attend to this man who may not have even been dead yet. He was dead by the time anybody bothered to help him, but he may not have been dead at that point in time. And instead of helping him, the National Guard runs over, pulls these two girls that just stole his car, and unlike with George Floyd, where they don't even, there's questions about his cause of death, and if his cause of death has nothing to do with it, the knee being on his neck, then I'm sorry, but your case is officially dead in the water at that point. If you can't even prove that Derek Chauvin had anything to do with his death, then you definitely can't get him for second degree. And you can't get him for manslaughter, and if you can't get him for manslaughter, you definitely can't get him for second degree, because second degree requires intent. And then you had all these protesters trying to demand that Derek Chauvin get charged with first degree murder, which is completely asinine, because first degree murder requires premeditation. Like, this would have had to have been pre-planned out. Which is impossible. But okay. They want to try and frame that to be a murder when they can't even clearly and concisely determine Floyd's cause of death. But then the media will go out and throw themselves out there and try to proclaim and pronounce the innocence of these two thieves. The only reason I've even brought race into it is because the media does this all the time, and I'm just sick of the hypocrisy. First off, they completely omitted the fact that these were two black teenagers, which, considering literally every other fucking crime that happens, they throw race out there, and then they fucking omit it from this. Fuck you, you fucking corporate pricks. You wannabe woke corporate cock-sucking pricks. But they completely omitted race. And I would omit race too. I wouldn't bring it up whatsoever, but I'm tired of the hypocrisy. So these two thieves very clearly I'm sure they didn't intend to kill the man, because they probably just thought, we're just going to hijack this dude's car and he's going to let us take it. But come on, people. They committed manslaughter. Them hijacking the people and driving the vehicle and crashing the vehicle led to this dude's death. These two are guilty of manslaughter. No questions asked. The video confirms it. But these deluded bimbos, you know what they tell the National Guard? They don't ask him if the man's okay. They don't ask him to help the man that they just killed. My iPhone in the car. My iPhone in the car. Like, fuck you, you deluded bitch. And you might ask why I would be so pissed about that. So, one of my subscribers and close friends, who I actually used to run a YouTube channel with, that only got like 2 videos uploaded, but whatever. And I were on our way to football practice, and we were on Highway 53. And there was hazard vehicles on the side of the road, because there had been a massive accident on the other half of 53, the one that heads in the opposite direction of where we were going. So we had to slow down and pull over into the other lane. And right as I started picking speed up again, I feel a bump. I turn around, and the vehicle behind me, their front end is completely fucking caved in. So now I gotta pull over. Right? Now, bear in mind what she hit was my hitch on the bottom of my, at the time, Jeep. She hit the trailer hitch, which that Jeep specifically, the design they had was the gas tank was right behind that. She was very, very close to puncturing my gas tank, which who the fuck knows what would have happened at that point. Best case scenario, my Jeep's fucked because it can no longer hold gas. And worst case scenario, kaboom. But we pull over, and finally, and medical help arrives, which I was fine. I was annoyed, but I didn't have any injuries or anything of that nature. But she had 2 brothers, right? One of them, their fucking kneecaps were bleeding. The other's face was paralyzed. She completely ignores them. Completely ignores them. And what she just did to them, because she wasn't fucking paying attention, and she smacked right into me. No, that bitch sits there. My wrist hurts. My wrist hurts. Like, well, first off, I'm sure that she fractured something. I'm sure. But it's like, you fucking bitch. You just paralyzed your brother's face and busted open the fucking kneecaps on your other one. And you want to sit there and bitch about your wrist? Are you fucking kidding me? These teenage girls, like, it don't even matter what race you are. These teenage girls that get into this shit and get into stupid ass accidents, they are so about themselves. They will completely ignore that they just caused a man's death or paralyzed their brother's fucking face. They only care about themselves. And and the fact that the National Guard just, oh yeah, we'll help you get it back as soon as it's safe to do so, while there's a man sitting there dying or dead or whatever, and they just ignore him. Anyways, looping back to what I was trying to start off with before I ended up going on a completely different tangent. But you know what? That's why it's a rant video. It's not meant to make sense or correlate in any way, shape, or form. It's just me being pissed off talking about whatever. But nobody wants to talk about mental health. Politicians don't want to talk about mental health. They know it's the real problem. They have to. But they'd rather go after the gun or go after the substance instead of trying to help the situation in any way, shape, or form. And I'm fed up. I really am. Like, these politicians don't want to talk about mental health, but they want to sit there and try and take your guns away, or take your little baggie of grass away. Then they should go fuck themselves. Vote them out. And then Biden, when he was talking about the Second Amendment, no amendment is absolute. Which, I mean, yeah, in some facet of sense, he is correct. See, amendments can be modified or revert or just outright abolished through the usage of another amendment. It's only happened one time in the country's history, and that was because prohibition was such a fucking joke that they needed to legalize alcohol again. Which, it was never illegal to consume it, it was just illegal to sell it. But it was such a fucking joke that they ended up ultimately creating another amendment to essentially negate the other one. So, I mean, if they wanted to pass a law to ban guns, an amendment to ban guns, they could, which is scary. But that's not how he was phrasing it. He was phrasing it as if, like, shall not be infringed somehow has an asterisk next to it. And that scares me because this goes beyond the Second Amendment, right? By his standards, the First Amendment is not absolute. Any form of speech that doesn't directly incite violence, yeah, you don't necessarily have that. Religious freedom, you don't necessarily have that. No religious freedom is absolute. Freedom of the press is not absolute. I skip ahead. The 19th Amendment, women's right to vote. Not absolute. Thirteenth through 15th Amendment, I want to say. I know there was like 3 different amendments on it. Black people having rights, that's not absolute. You can't make this shit up. So, yeah, that's gonna do it for this little rant video. Just had a bunch of shit I needed to get off my chest. Peace.